Thanks for playing with us and being willing to tune in. All right. So, as we were talking about today, I mean, today again, Helen, we had this conversation. We always think it's so important to talk about why the habits that we built when we were maybe in our 20s or our 30s are no longer working with us, and why sometimes they start to actually sabotage our hormones. And really look at there's three hormonal patterns that start to shift and look different after age 40 for women. And this is all about clarity. This is
Mhm.
about empowerment so that you can feel resourced and have the tools to start to see things different. So I'm so glad you guys are here. Like I said, I'll just take a moment for those just tuning in. My name's Amanda Hinman. I'm the founder of the Hormone Freedom Method for women over 40 who are looking to up level and energize their hormones, metabolism, and their mood. And I'm joined by Helen. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm joining Amanda in her Hormone Freedom team to be able to bring to you guys more mindset, practical things like strength training, and another perspective on improving your hormone health through behavior change, motivation, and a bit of my old story of the things that I used to do that when I turned 40 didn't work for me anymore. So I'm glad that we're here to share all this with everyone.
Yes, definitely. And I always like to check in and do a pulse check of what's been coming up for those of you that are tuning in, whether you're watching the live, whether you're watching the replay. Just what's one word? If you could put one word into the chat, what comes up as how your body has been feeling most recently? Just kind of doing that self check. I will say for me, actually, Helen, we were talking about this right before
Mhm.
we went on live. I'm like, for me, it's fatigue. Um, Definitely have a lot going on. My husband's actually in the hospital. He had back surgery, something we knew that was coming for many years, but he had it yesterday and it went longer than expected. So it just a lot of things, emotional things and all of that. But that's just coming up. I don't know if you want to share what's coming up for you,
Yeah.
Helen.
Well, Scott said exhausted in the chat, and I'm like, there must be something in the air because I'm feeling tired too. And I even went to my workout this morning and I gave myself that permission just to put on my clothes, put on my shoes, get in the car, forward momentum. I'm like, whatever happens, happens. And I modified everything and I drank a lot of water. I'm glad I went, and it wasn't my, all in best performance, but talking about hormones, like sometimes we protect ourselves in that way when we're so exhausted. And I know you'll talk about more about that, Amanda,
Yes.
during the training. But we have to take care of ourselves and also keep the behaviors and the habits that we create for ourselves, even when we're really tired, like being able to move
Mhm.
into those habits that feel really hard, but showing up for yourself in a way that actually does nourish you so that you can recover.
I love that you just shared this, Helen, because that's exactly it. And it's funny, I was in a session this morning with a woman I was talking about. We were talking about keep the schedule, change the scope. And I think that goes a long way with how we keep those small little promises to ourselves. It's rather than it be an all or nothing type of approach, this is what is part of the new, like kind of the new distinction, I will say, like especially after 40. It's like I respect your body. It's not just about like plowing through and pushing harder because that's not effective. And simultaneously, we can keep the schedule. Like if your schedule is like in the morning, I have this workout class that I go to, keep the schedule, change the scope, exactly what
Yeah.
you did, modify,
Yeah.
add extra hydration. So that is really a beautiful practice. Thanks for just sharing that and modeling
Sure.
it. It's something that we talk about all the time, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I know. And we tend to really push ourselves and then be hard on ourselves. Like, oh, I didn't do well enough. You know what? I showed up today, period. Like we get to say that.
Yes. And that is enough,
Yeah, that's
right?
enough.
Definitely. I mean, because we talk about this right now, there's this like meaningful gap between what is truly healthy and what is hormonally healthy for women over age 40, because our body does shift. We have these changes when we're going through perimenopause, when we're going through, even when we've reached menopause, right? And I think in 2026, the conversation around women's health is awesome. It's a great time because this is like the buzzword, the catchword is
Hmm.
perimenopause and menopause, but it's so much more than just the hot flashes and just the weight gain and the anxiety. I really like to elevate this conversation beyond focusing exclusively on symptoms and managing the symptoms, because I think now most of us realize that are hormonal intentional, and it's really a whole health event. It affects our brain, it affects our heart, it affects our metabolism, it affects our bones, and yes, it affects our muscles too. So it's exciting to think about this conversation now rather than just, okay, how can I, get rid of the hot flashes and maybe take an estradiol patch because I don't want to have hot flashes. I think so many of us are going beyond that and really looking for how can I navigate this health season, this new journey in a way that's going to set me up for success for the next several decades. Like we're
Mhm.
talking about extending life quality and longevity so that it really affects how you feel for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, there's so many of us who walk around saying exactly what you said. Like, I don't want the hot flashes. I don't want the weight gain. I don't want X, Y, and Z. And when we aren't committed to getting down to the root cause of the issues that are going on for us, or we're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with those things, you're going to end up on like 20 different supplements, different
Mhm.
patches, different shots, all of these things to eliminate each thing individually. But Amanda, we have a key, you have a key to unlocking what can help bring relief to all of that stuff, not just playing whack-a-mole with it or going to a specialty doctor for one thing. It's like, how do we look at this as a holistic experience and follow through with it for the long haul in a way that is nourishing and comfortable for the whole body?
Yes, yes. And I love it. And this is a great chance to chime in. I'm going to share. So we do have Helen and I are doing our Hormone Freedom Reset. We do this complimentary 4-day workshop once a quarter next week. It actually kicks off May 18th through the 21st. Super excited about it. So I'll go ahead and put the reset link in the chat. If you haven't yet, you can sign up there. If you're tuning in later, watching the replay, definitely check the comment section. We'll make sure that we drop that link or go to even our Instagram page. You can see that right at the top under the attached links. But this is your chance. This is really where we dive deeper and we look already signed up. Great. That's awesome. I'm glad to see you there. This is where we literally take the time to break it down in the whole hormone freedom method. This is the exact same process that we use with our one-on-one clients to, like, as Helen said, stop applying the whack-a-mole strategy and look at hormone integration. How can we bring the puzzle piecing, understanding what your body is signaling, understanding what is asking for support in the right sequence, first, second, third, and also bring the mindset and bring the support and the daily practices that are going to allow you to stay consistent and, really see that notable transformation in your health, in your vitality, in your energy levels. So very excited about that. Today, what I think we can dive a little bit deeper in is talking about how, you know, obviously there are changes we talked about in the brain and the metabolism, in our bones, in our gut, even when it comes to these hormonal shifts that take place. And I always say after age 40, sometimes for women it's closer to 45 or even 47. But really, when you start to see your body and you have that sense of like, it's not responding the way it used to.
Mhm.
I used to be able to be a little bit more intentional with my food choices or get in a couple extra workouts. And then I would feel energized. I would feel back on track. But now those levels aren't happening the same way. I just recognize that usually these are not the conversations that are taking place in our doctor's appointments. When you go in for your annual checkup and they run labs, especially if you've been told everything is fine, but you don't feel fantastic, just recognizing that these are not taking place in those 12-minute doctor's appointments. They just unfortunately don't have the bandwidth. Not because your doctor is incompetent. Of course, they're highly trained, highly skilled, but the system just wasn't built to really support you fully, right? So we get to go beyond that. We get to go beyond the gap of either you have this disease, it's call it high blood pressure, call it anxiety, call it, for me, it was Hashimoto's was the diagnosis, whatever the diagnosis is, and you are fine. Like there's a big range in between
Mhm.
those two. And unfortunately, those 12-minute appointments don't effectively address the gap, what's in the middle, right? And this is where menopause, where hormone changes quietly does damage over time.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important for women to get in touch with those signals and to those subtleties because it can be so quiet. And then all of a sudden, when it's so loud, you're like crying for help. But like you said, doctors may do blood work and say, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't worry about it. It's just this thing, or maybe dismissive. And like you said, it's not that they're incompetent. It's just that they want to do the job that they want to do to improve like the one thing that they're focused on. And if they don't have proof, right, then they're just going to say there's nothing I can do about it. But we know
Mhm.
that women know their bodies and they know something is wrong and they know something is going on and they want answers, not to be dismissed and not to just have this like this one track thinking, right?
Yes. It's really interesting. So I'm just going to kind of reflect a little bit on my experience yesterday. So being in the hospital with Mike as he's going into surgery and then even on the way out, like it's our current day medical care is truly miraculous. Like the technology, the way that they could like hook up literally all these like acupuncture type needles across his whole arms and legs and head to monitor his nervous system as they were operating on his back and his spine. It's amazing what is possible. And what it was beautiful, like paradox, because I'm seeing like the complexity and the sophistication in one realm, which is really awesome and amazing. And then simultaneously, it's so like singular and isolated and focused that sometimes it's like, again, it's that blend is like we do need to have that clarity and that specificity, especially in acute situations like a
Hmm.
spinal surgery. And it's important to be able to step back and really look at the bigger picture and see the interconnectedness of everything and see how these habits and these routines and these different ways that we show up, our ways of being, even our emotional patterns, our thoughts and our beliefs are playing into that bigger picture, affecting our hormone health and our metabolism, right?
Yeah,
And that's what's
absolutely.
so, yeah, it's so inspiring to do this work because I feel like we're at a really cool time in healthcare. It's I don't know. I'm just trying to think if anyone has experienced this where they felt either inspired by what's happening in, their own health situation or the technology. You can wear all these wearables, these trackable devices and things like that. The GLP-1s, the peptides, all of things that are available in the market, but then also simultaneously a little bit like overwhelmed of where do I start? How do I navigate all of this?
Yeah, and how do I do all of it all at once? But
Yes.
you don't have to.
Definitely. So today I do want to kind of, expand on how hormones are never operating in isolation. They work as a connected system. Hormones are really the messenger molecules in the body, and they help to communicate, what starts in the brain and then it's connected to our adrenals and then it's connected to our thyroids and it signals to our gut. All of this works together. And this is exactly why in step 3 of the hormone freedom method, we spend so much time thinking about, resetting your thoughts and how that affects your stress response, that fight or flight response in the body. Not in a way that most, people have conversations about like, oh, you got to add in more meditation and, you have to like think about handling stress so that you're not producing cortisol. Like nothing is wrong with the breathing breaks or the meditation breaks, but really going deeper, sometimes it's about understanding what your cortisol threshold is, your nutrient demands, your recovery requirements, and how these have all shifted, especially as you enter this new season, this new stage. And the habits that worked in your 30s likely are going to need to be modified and going to need to be adjusted for the new conditions, this new kind of operating system that we're working in, right? So that means that the buffer you used to have, where you could have skipped meals and go straight into workouts, or you could have, you know, late nights and then get up the next day and just start your work day, start your week the same way. Like you were just talking about, like normally
Hmm.
you have an earlier bedtime and a couple later nights. It's like, oh, I have to modify, right? That buffer changes and that buffer adjusts. So being able to recognize that and work with the body in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, working with the body is so important and understanding how it evolves over time and what changes for you. And you're right, Amanda, it is all about mindset because if you know that something's different for yourself, you're not going to give yourself the business about not doing it a certain way in the way that you used to. It's an evolution of of who you are and of what's going on in your body and what's possible for you, not a something to be hard on yourself about or something that you used to be. It's just different now, and it can work in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It keeps that new normal of learning. And this is exactly, like I said, exactly what we're talking about all next week, the 4-day Hormone Freedom Reset. If you haven't yet, definitely sign up. Join us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to be kicking off at 12 Central Standard each day. Each day is going to have a different focus and it builds upon the day before. So day one is all about clarifying your pattern. We'll get into that today a little bit too, is really recognizing which of these three hormonal patterns is showing up, which is being the loudest in your body, and how you can start to support that first to get the momentum. And then we'll be talking more about replenishing key nutrients. Like every single cell in the body is nutrient dependent, what your cells need, how to identify where your nutrients may be having gaps and where to fill them in to support, and we're supporting that digestion. And then we go into, like I said, really helping to support the nervous system, the mindset, the beliefs and the patterns so that it can be sustainable. You can get out of that chronic fight or flight response. I don't know about you, Helen, but I think that a very common thing that I am still always a work in process on is this belief of not having enough time, not
Hmm.
having enough support, not having enough. I feel usually for me it's a time limitation, but that if we live and operate in that all the time, even though there's no physiological threat on our bodies, that keeps us in that fight or flight, that
Yeah.
stress response pattern.
Yeah, yeah. For
Is
me,
nodding your head.
yeah, I totally get it. Like the not enough time thing, like that enoughness. And I really struggle with the fear of failing. It's like, well, if I try it and it doesn't go well, or if I do the best I can and I don't feel better, can
Mhm.
really kind of keep me from actually taking a risk on doing something better for my health. And it's kind of like, you know what, forget it. I'm just not going to do it because that is overwhelming in itself. Thinking about what if I
Mhm.
try this thing and it's not going to work out? And without
Mhm.
having an empathetic ear or a coach or someone, by your side who's going to hold your hand through it and let you know it's okay and also walk you through to get to the other side, it's very hard to continue when you have a fear like that or when you feel like you're not enough. Which is why it's so
Mhm.
important for people to join next week because you're offering 4 days of support to get through
Yes.
it. So it's definitely important to show up.
And thank you for presencing that, because that's why I have coaches, right? That's why I have people, because there's a difference between being able to be in a shared space and be witnessed candidly in that vulnerability, in that space of hesitancy or uncertainty or the feeling of not enough.
Hmm.
And it really, that has helped me tremendously to move through those obstacles or those challenges or those beliefs and really look at, like, okay, this doesn't have to be the way it stays. Like that can be adapted, that can change, that can transform over time. So yeah, the power of community, the power of being in like a collaboration is
Hmm.
I don't know, hard to put into words, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Another thing that we talk about, like why physiology matters, I think it's important to recognize, like most women I talk to and most of our clients, they don't have a discipline problem. We tend to be really hard on ourselves and we tend to think like, oh, this is just, I'm not focused enough, or I have to do more, I have to do more. And it's really usually not about a discipline problem. To be honest, our threshold and our bandwidth has changed, the capacity has changed when the hormone levels change. I actually think that's a purposeful, it's like almost natural shift, because it's about really leaning into more astute awareness and clarity. And that's usually a sequencing problem. Like we just haven't identified or understood, like, ooh, I haven't leaned in and gotten quiet enough to see the nuance of
Mhm.
what is happening now and what my need is now. And that's exactly why most women come into our world, and my world, is they don't want the generic advice. They don't want the things that you see posted on Instagram of like, okay, eat more protein, and it's just a matter of moving your body more, eating more protein. It's like they fall into certain patterns. They want to be able to recognize these patterns. So let's talk a little bit about that. There are typically three hormone patterns that I see over and over repeated again. The first is what I call like energy and output fatigue. And this is where really it feels like you just kind of can't keep up with the same energy levels that you used to experience. Maybe it looks like brain fog. It can look like, the woman who pushes and pushes and pushes and then just crashes. Or sometimes it's like, I can get through the morning and I can kind of power through, but by 2 p.m., I need that extra cup of coffee just to be able to kind of get through the afternoon. Oftentimes, this can be a signal that there's suboptimal thyroid conversion or something in the thyroid hormone pathway, the metabolic pathway is not yet optimized, right? So, seeing if you're noticing that you start strong and fall off, or you don't have the same focus, the same mental clarity, the same resiliency that you used to. Maybe it looks like going for a workout and then what used to energize you leaves you completely wiped out afterwards. This is really that energy and output fatigue pattern that I call like the most common type 1 pattern that we see. And the key here is balancing our our thyroid hormone pathway and that conversion and blood sugar balance. Because when we have that instability, that can really throw off that metabolism, right? Metabolism is key to keep that steady, that state nice and resourceful. And I know, Helen, you know a lot about balancing blood sugar. I know you talk a
Mhm.
lot about this with people. I don't know if you want to add anything else about that here.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most overlooked issues that we have in the body. And people think that it is just about protein or abstaining from sugar or refined carbohydrates. And it can be a lot about that. But where we fail to make some of the other connections is in balancing the thyroid or balancing the nervous system, getting adequate sleep, taking breaks in the day. Making sure that you're feeling taken care of is also really important in making sure that you're feeling balanced. And so, looking at all of those aspects is going to be really important. And you can imagine if you feel well rested and I mean, just like feeling wise, you can feel if you're having a blood sugar imbalance. We're like, oh, am I having a blood sugar? I don't know. I have to get like blood tests or, I'm overweight or whatever. But you can actually feel that lull or that waking up tired or whatever's going on for you as far as like energy, like you said, energy input and output is a signifier of what's going on with your blood sugar. And there's many things that we'll talk about at the training that are going to help with that.
Yes, definitely. And then type 2 that we see most often is what I call stress response. This is really where the body is stuck in that hypervigilant activation of our nervous system, right? Or the sympathetic side of the nervous system that is really that fight, flight, flee. The body is either be a physiological stressor, sometimes it can be a mental emotional stressor, sometimes it can be almost just like mental overload, too much decision fatigue, really like lack of social stressors. It can be, if we're feeling isolated, if we don't feel supported in those nourishing relationships, people who are really pouring into you and genuine, authentic connection. Sometimes it can be greater existential stress. I just don't feel like I have a direction in life. So a lot of these different buckets, a lot of times we like to look at, I think last week I showed like these 6 different categories of stress, right? Stress is a big, overly used generic term for a physiological response that happens in the body. But one of the things to notice is, and you can take the hormone freedom assessment, that's where it helps you identify which pattern is the loudest. If we have that stress response, that pattern 2 happening, it really drives that cortisol and that adrenaline, which interferes with regular hormone stability and balance. Um, you can definitely swing between extremes. Again, this can look like hypervigilance. It could look like restlessness. I can't sit still. Those racing thoughts where you feel like, oh my gosh, it's this never ending loop of ruminating thoughts. If you had, it could be like, I'm just can't drop a conversation that I had with, a friend from 2 days ago. And it's like, yeah, we had a little bit of friction, a little bit of, frustration, but I just can't seem to let it go. That is a sign that the body may be stuck in this type 2 pattern, this stress response. So, again, we're going to be talking all next week about how do we support that? How do you create new routines and new changes so that it doesn't get stuck in overdrive all the time, right? Feeling wired and then exhausted.
Yeah, it makes me think, Amanda, about how many people that you've helped and I helped through anxious states or ruminating thoughts or lack of purpose in their life, and being able to feel better in those ways, and the amount of medication that they can actually reduce, and because they have some of these things that are more balanced. And like you said earlier, like modern medicine, the fact that we can take things in order to lift depression and quell anxiety and to feel better is incredible. But the fact that we can actually listen to the body and make some lifestyle changes where you might be able to have even less. I know we've both worked with people where that's been possible, is also
Hmm.
a freaking miracle and amazing. So
Yeah.
I just want to honor that, that so many of us really feel that way, situational or environmental stressors that cause depression, anxiety, and all of that, and being able to relieve some of that through root cause
Hmm.
strategy can just make such a huge difference in lifting our mood and helping to calm that down.
Definitely. Definitely. And then we have the type 3 pattern, which is what the fueling and digestion. This is really about our ability to bring on and receive adequate nourishment. And I say this nourishment, typically we think of like the physical nutrients in the food that we eat and like our gut health. Absolutely, it's tied and linked to our gut health and the health of our microbiome, the health of our ability to be able to break down and adequately absorb nutrients from the food that we eat. It's also, I believe there's often a correlation with energetically, our ability to receive receive support, to receive, emotional kind of regulation as well, and absorb that to, because sometimes in a weird way, it's like if we don't have enough self-love or enough worthiness, we kind of just unintentionally deflect that also, right? So, looking at that fueling and digestion from a physical nutrient level and a gut health status and our ability of our, having good, strong digestion to be able to adequately break apart nutrients so that they can get absorbed at a cellular level. And then going deeper, looking at those deeper layers of worthiness, that sense of, do I feel and do I practice enough self-care and enough self-love to put my needs? Maybe I do need to take a break in the middle of the afternoon and kind of just unplug from those back to back to back meetings. Or maybe I do need to say no to a family member who wanted me to drive and do extra things, extra carpools on a weekend, because it's really important for me to practice my own self-care, to take time to, go out for a walk instead and do different things like that. So that willingness to not always put everyone else's needs first and you at the bottom of the list, as well as the clarity and the insight to know physically, am I getting the core nutrients in on a regular basis? And is my body able to receive those nutrients and that nourishment? Yeah. And I can just, just even sharing an example, I'm thinking of a client, Michelle, that I worked with recently, and she for 14 months had been following the same routine. She, for her, it was eating 1,400 calories a day because she was like very intentional about wanting to reduce, like cut some weight, walking 5 days a week, the typical 7 to 8 hours focus of sleep. So she was quote unquote doing all the things right. These are like checking the boxes, and she had gained 11 pounds while doing those things. So talk about frustrating. Like it seems like I'm following the plan, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but for her, it was a stress response pattern. That was the most prevalent, that was the loudest pattern that came up. So we really talked about what are some of these other things that are driving her cortisol metabolism. Because when you're stuck in that cortisol mechanism, it's like your body is physiologically trying to store fat. It is not going to work with you to release that weight. It's trying to preserve that because it deems that you may need to have an energy supply later on because it's not a safe, stable environment. So instead of, just feeling absolutely like a failure, she really recognized and learned like, okay, wow, I have to see some of these habits that I have been doing, really eating a low calorie restricted diet, being really diligent about some of my workouts and things like that were not quite enough. She had to, shift. It's not that they were wrong, but she had to just work under some new rules, adjusted the timing of your fuel, built in recovery so that she did have that good rebound after her exercise. Use some new technologies. We talk a lot about this, but emotional freedom technique, tapping, EFT,
Mhm.
is a really powerful tool to help release some of that trapped trauma that can be stored in our nervous system. So the nervous system is kind of stimulated unintentionally. And she didn't necessarily start over. She just recognized the pattern, started to be more strategic with the type of support, the type of tools. And now she was able to go ahead and see her metabolism heal. She did see the weight come off the scale. She did supercharge her energy and she felt more confident and empowered. So it's really about knowing how to make the appropriate changes and walk through that process while supporting your body. So again, this is what we're going to be talking about even more next week in our Hormone Freedom Reset. So I just want to go ahead and share that again. If you're feeling like, oh, there's definitely some pieces of the puzzle that I don't have figured out yet. There's some things that I've been trying and it seems like I'm spinning my wheels, or I feel overwhelmed. That's what's more probably one of the most common things I hear people say to me is they just feel a sense of overwhelm. This is about streamlining it, giving you more simplicity, and a proven roadmap to follow once you can decipher the single signals that your body is presenting with. Like, what is it asking for to start with?
Yeah. Well, I know I'm excited to come to the workshop series and to be in that with you, Amanda, to be able to see how many women are going to take control of their health over that 4-day series and be able to make some of those changes. I just know it's going to be so inspiring for them and to be able to move forward with that amount of information. It's hard to, in isolation, come to these trainings that are just an hour long and to soak all that in, but to really immerse yourself in that. It's powerful
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. And I see a comment here. Okay, love that you can make it easy for me to implement your proven methodology. That's the key, right? It's not starting all over. It's not starting from scratch. It's like, let's streamline this, let's simplify this, and give you something that's going to still be unique to your body, where your body is now, what your body is asking for, and what it's showing that it needs some support with. So definitely excited for that. Excited to check that out with all of you. And as we think about this, a couple of things that we like to talk about. I do want to go through a little bit of those steps so that you can have clarity of what to expect. Again, day one is really about identifying your pattern, getting to understand deeper what we talked about, these three patterns. The energy and output fatigue is a matter of my metabolism just isn't able to keep up. I need to have a little bit more sustainability, a little bit more you know, balance in that energy and output level. Is it a type 2 stress response where we just got to get the body to be able to navigate between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic and have more regular cadence, more stability and balance there? Is it that fueling and digestion, which oftentimes is related to our absorption, our ability to really fully take in nourishment, as well as to receive emotional support, right? That emotional level of sustenance and worthiness that goes hand in hand with our ability to absorb and to receive. So we'll be talking about that. Day one is all about really recognizing your pattern. And some people say I have a little bit of each. That's very common. They kind of all overlap. And then day two, we're going to dive deeper on what specifically does it look like with the PFFV, one hand meal plan strategy for simplicity, about nourishment, how to recognize where your body may have some gaps, what you can fill in with that digestion piece so that you can really up level. I'm going to be sharing the baking soda test and ways that you can check to see how your digestive capacity is currently and where it can use some support. And then we go into day three is kind of bringing it all together. I like to look at like hormone integration. How can we bring it together with the nervous system, knowing that there is that deeper layer of support in how we sustainably get the body to get out of that stress response and find balance. So we bring it all together, the physical piece, the emotional piece, the support piece, the accountability. I don't know, Helen, if you want to talk about that. We know that accountability is a huge area of kind of your health toolkit. If you think about, what is my health support around me? A lot of us think about our doctor, maybe a chiropractor or some other specialist if you like acupuncture. But I often ask clients that I work with, so we need to make sure that you have a community, a support, a sense of accountability to help you through this path ongoing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having a mentor, having a support, somebody who's been there before. I mean, the amount of people that go off and they've been like healthy their whole lives, or they've been like inspired by their family who's been really healthy, and they just have this glowing skin, and they know things because they've never really suffered, is so different than someone like you or me, Amanda, who's actually been
Yeah.
in the place of suffering and can actually relate and not just be an expert, but be a mentor, someone to hold your hand through the tough things. And I think Amanda on day 4 is a Q&A, right? Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we will definitely have Q&A there and time to really see how to map out your whole pathway, your whole
Yeah.
hormone freedom pathway, to put it all together. And then time, yeah, time for Q&A, because honestly, there's always going to be, questions or like unique situations that you can gain clarity on, that you can have perspective and hear from other women who have really had powerful transformations. I think sometimes it's important to recognize the value of putting yourself in the space to be inspired.
Yeah.
Like if we're just going through our life and we're busy, distracted, and let's be honest, there is a massive amount of things that can be distractors in our world. So it's about consciously choosing to put yourself in an environment and surround yourself. Like, we have a mutual mentor, Helen, I'm thinking of, that always talks about like, what am I surrounding myself with? What
Hmm.
type of inputs from what am I seeing? What am I hearing about? What am I tuning into? What am I listening to? That is really powerful too, is surrounding yourself with stories of inspiration, stories of
Hmm.
possibility. That's how you start to believe it's possible for you as well.
Yeah, stories of inspiration, also struggle, like where it is that's hard for you, and knowing that somebody else is in the same boat as you. And Amanda, I know how important community is to both of us, and I know for myself, it's harder to do things on my own, from reading a book or looking up a reel or doing, something that somebody said, than it is to actually go through a process like what you are going to explain, of understanding yourself and then being able to be in community of other women who are going through the same thing, or who can mentor or share their experience and stories for that inspiration, but also to implement. Like you get to implement right after day 4, because you get your questions answered after 3 days
Yeah.
of taking in all of this information. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't implement unless somebody's sitting right next to me telling me to do it.
Honestly, that's it, exactly. I implement when I have the support, the mentorship,
Yes.
the accountability, the guidance, because best laid plans of hearing something new. That's well, I call that brain candy. Is like when the brain gets excited because, oh, I heard something, or that really sounds like a good idea. It's brain candy
Mm,
unless I actually have the support around me to use it and to
yeah.
put it into practice, right? And that's what creates results. So super excited for those of you to join us. That next week we kick off May 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st. That will be happening live every day at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 10 a.m. Pacific. I put the link in the chat one more time. So excited to see you there.
Going to be awesome.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk again next week. Bye.